Hello guys, it's Sneakyturtle back with another Kerbal Space Program video. In this video, we're going to be rescuing a poor Kerbal from the Mun that I left in the last video. The N1 Soviet moon rocket recreation that I did. I left a Kerbal on the moon. Unfortunately, he is stranded and in immediate need of rescue. So in this little garbage storyline, he is going to be saved by a American Skylon-inspired SSTO. So I'm zooming in, just heading towards the end of the runway. But also, this is YouTube, so I do plugs and stuff. There's a thumbs up button, a thumbs down button, and a big red button. You can click any one of those you want, I don't really care. Just click one of them. But here we are, taking off the Skylon SSTO. Flying up into the air. The reason that those little rapier engines have the purple-ish plume is because of a mod called the Waterfall mod. It is a really epic mod for literally any type of rocket exhaust. The only rocket exhaust that it doesn't do is SRBs, so it's really awesome. But yeah, so at first this SSTO has to stay really close to sea level, and then it can start to pick up speed and head towards space. And once we're in space, then we have to fire up the 4 nuclear engines, which is probably a little bit overkill for this rocket. But anyways, as we continue our ascent to orbit, the rapier engines get their magical speed of 440 meters a second, which I don't know why, but in Kerbal Space Program means that they can go infinitely fast, basically, or at least fast enough to go to space. So it will just pitch up on its own at this point with all the drag that it's getting. And as it accelerates faster and faster and faster, it will head up into space. Now, firing up the nuclear engines now. This rocket also can only carry 2 Kerbals. It has a lot of delta V. Once it's in orbit, it is 5,000 meters a second, and delta V, or around 5,000 meters a second. Which basically means it could probably do a Duna mission, except my landing was so inefficient that it... whatever. But the rapier engines in rocket mode take a lot of oxidizer and a lot of liquid fuel. And the more I use the rocket mode in the rapier engines, the less efficient the craft becomes. But obviously the nuclear engines are extremely efficient, so... but they also offer a horribly low thrust. So I had to pitch up to 90 degrees throughout the whole ascent. So I'm trying to get the apoapsis as far out as possible, so that by the time I reach it, I'll have almost been in orbit. But as we continue the ascent into orbit, this took a long time to get into orbit. I ended up switching on the rocket mode a few times and shutting it off. But this craft also has a lot of oxidizer, which is nice because landing on the moon will sometimes require oxidizer if I'm coming in too fast, and then taking off the Mun will also require the rocket mode, because the nuclear engines don't quite have enough thrust to take off. I mean, maybe if I was on a hill or something. But now I am heading out to the Mun to rescue our stranded Kerbal. Also, this video has a pretty epic ending, so just stay tuned for the kind of gimmick at the end. Viewer attention. So I gotta keep people watching, right? That's how YouTube works. Yeah. Whatever. Now we're doing our second burn out to the Mun, and we are on our way to the Mun. Now I'm going to do a course correction burn, and then I'm finding the Kerbal so that I can set him as target, and getting the orbit inclination lined up with the Kerbal so that I can land right next to him and save the Kerbal. So we are going to change the orbit inclination and then time warp on over to the Mun. As we head on over to the Mun, I auto-strutted that last piece because it wasn't auto-strutted, so it was glitching a little bit, but now doing a deorbit burn to land next to the Kerbal. I was a little off, but with the nuclear engines I had to start the burn extremely early, so I ended up being way, way off of the target. Like, way off. So I ended up needing to... Well, actually, I'm going to save that so that the video explains itself, and I don't have to explain the video. Because that wouldn't make any sense for me to explain the video. But, anyways, as I failed to commentary any of this video, but whatever, coming in for a landing on the Mun, firing up those nuclear engines because they just don't have any thrust at all. So I came in too fast, so I had to fire up those oxidizer engines. Just a few taps, and deployed the landing gear, and come in for a smooth touchdown. Not really smooth, but sort of smooth touchdown. Activating the brakes, and we're going to switch to the other Kerbal because his craft still has a small amount of remaining fuel. So we are going to see if he has enough fuel to get back to the spacecraft. I don't know if he had enough to get in orbit. If he did, then I probably could have just brought him to orbit. But then what was I going to do? Because I still need to bring him back to Kerbin, so this SSTO was just a nice win-win. So, for some reason it didn't show me that where the SSTO was at all, so I just kind of had to guess where it was. And eventually I ended up finding it, but unfortunately I have run basically out of fuel. So I fire up the engine for one last time as we're running out of fuel on landing. So I deviated the Kerbal. I tried to save the craft, but unfortunately I couldn't. So I fired up the RCS jetpack, coming for a very hard touchdown, and then fly over to the SSTO. So now we're going to bring both the Kerbals out. I'm just transferring them to the inflatable airlock. Bringing both the Kerbals out as they plant the American flag because America has, or NASA has saved the Soviet Kerbal because, or the Russian Kerbal because the, I don't know, I guess in this storyline, the Russians never saved their own cosmonaut, so NASA had to save them. But now, hopping them back in the craft, closing up that inflatable airlock, and getting ready to fire up those nuclear engines. So firing them up as they provide like absolutely no thrust, firing up the rocket engines, and shutting them off. And then firing them up again, shutting them off, and firing them up one final time. And now we are heading up. As we now coast on up to apogee. Unfortunately, for some reason, I didn't burn at 90 degrees, which is what you're supposed to do when you're getting in orbit on the Mun. I didn't do that for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what I was thinking, but I didn't do it, so I had actually a much more inefficient burn. So, yeah, that was kind of dumb of me, but I don't know why I did that. But for some reason now it was saying that I didn't have enough fuel, but I did, which is really weird, because I had plenty enough liquid fuel, but it was counting the rocket engines, or the Rapier engines, instead of the nuclear engines, which is really weird. I don't know why it was doing that, but now heading on out to Kerbin, or back to Kerbin, or whatever. But now we're heading back to the Kerbal Space. Now, as we come back to the Kerbal Space Center, coming up on the final, like, gimmick and cool part of this video, probably the coolest part, coming in for a deorbit burn, or not burn, just a capture, I don't even know what that'd be called. I really should look this stuff up before I record a video. Whatever. But now, obviously, the rocket was losing control, so I just did the launch abort system, which is kind of the gimmick of this video. So it's just a little plane that shoots out of the air SSTO thing, and flies around. It doesn't have any landing gear, so I'm aiming for that little puddle there. I don't know if that would be called a pond, puddle, I don't know what it would be called. But now coming in for a landing in Puddle Lake. So now, as the video comes to an end, I would like to thank you guys for watching. Click the thumbs up button, the thumbs down button, or the big red button. See you next time. Bye.